Hi everyone, it's Lois K. Smith, Ed K. Smith, and our special glamorous guest today, Maria Doyle, for another episode of My Livelihood. And we're really excited about this one because Maria has been someone I met a little while ago now, probably a couple of years ago now. And before I met her, I was told about her. You must see Maria Doyle, I was told a couple of
Yes.
times. And you know what Perth's like when someone says you must see this person, and all things converge. So I was very excited to meet the lovely Maria, and the reason was that I was putting some information together for my career practice, career wisdom, and I wanted to start looking at online options, and that was when people said you must see Maria Doyle. So Maria is more than a transformation expert for getting stuff out of your head and into digital form, or even face-to-face presentations when we're allowed to do those again. She's also an educator. She'll probably give you a bit of background about that and some fun stories. And she's just such a fun person to work with. So it's been a real pleasure. And when Ed and I were talking about who we want to have on the show, we said Maria is a must. So welcome, Maria.
Thanks, Lois. Lovely to be here.
Hey, Maria.
Awesome.
Hey, Ed. Lovely to be here as usual with you two. When is it?
And Maria and I were on a panel as well, which is where we met Maria for the first time in person.
In person, yes.
We were on a panel.
That's right.
You, me, and who
John
else?
Blake.
John Blake.
Lacey Philippich.
Lacey Philippich, yeah. And there was a couple of others, I think.
Maybe Nikki as well?
Yes. Nikki, can't even remember her last name. Oh my goodness, what's wrong with me? But yes, it was all about, that was a panel about the reality behind getting information out of your head and into, into a product that sells. So we had digital marketers, we had curriculum developer, me, we had business coaches, all sorts of different people coming together to give people a better idea of all the different sides, sales and marketing. And Chris Clements-Shepherd was part of that as well.
That's right.
That's right. Yes,
exactly.
She was.
So it was lovely to meet the legend, Maria, because I'd only just heard about you from several people, and finally I actually got to meet you that evening. So it was awesome. And it's interesting when you say curriculum development, because a lot of people kind of think, what's that? And obviously you have a teaching background. Do you want to share with us a little bit about that background and how you flip that now in your curriculum development into helping people?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a long story. You got time?
Yeah, I'll just relax.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll give you the abridged version. So I graduated with a double major in languages, unable to really speak either of them very well, and wondered what I was going to do with a Bachelor of Arts. So I decided to take a bit of a gap here and just teach English for a little while. And I thought, that'll give me some direction. Maybe I'll come back and get a proper job. And I just kept getting these awesome postings. So I was teaching English in Indonesia to start with, and then Japan. I ended up in Hong Kong, Dubai, like all sorts of different places in summer schools, working for big organizations and smaller schools as well. And I really just took the ride that was the career. I mean, I didn't never really think it was going to be a career. I just kept taking jobs, and I traveled and I learnt languages and just learnt more about different cultures, and I was sort of a bit hooked on it for a little while. So that was about 7 or 8 years I did that. And then I got a bit bored teaching grammar. But in a lot of those jobs, I was called in a teacher training role. So because my classrooms were so fun and full of energy, and like people are like, how do you get them responding like that? Like my kids are just like pond life. They don't talk to you. They don't look at you. They're just like
pond life.
Well, yes. So I was like, this is how you do it. So like you had to bring a bit of energy and how to motivate people. And so I sort of naturally fell into a teacher training sort of role. And then I came back and was working in Australia and was teaching academic English to adults, because a lot of the work overseas revolves around children and teenagers. Like you have to take the hit. There's nothing, you can take your adult classes, but you also have to take a proportion of the others. And as much as I love children, I really don't love teaching them. It's a very different, I think a lot of parents are finding that out.
Aren't they just?
Aren't
they just?
Love the little darlings, but it's a different world. Primary school and secondary school classrooms are a different world, and I really got my buzz from teaching adults. I came back and I was teaching academic English in a university, but again was getting a bit bored. and was doing my master's at the same time as teaching academic writing. So that was useful. I was learning how to write properly again. And from there went and started working in a curriculum development project at the university. So we were looking at all of the courses university-wide, so everything at Curtin, from graduate certificates to right through to master's programs and everything in between. So our job was to standardise the curriculum. So that meant that the activities had to be in line with the outcomes, had to be in line with the assessments, had to be equitable and fair, had to be in line with any industry organisations that they were aligned to or accredited by. So you'd think that all universities have all of that intact. But the truth is that a lot of departments just operate as a bit of a bubble under general university-wide recommendations. So that was a really extensive project. I was one of 13 curriculum developers on that project, and I signed off a third of the courses. Now,
wow.
The reason is because I've got this systems brain. I've got a real logistical brain. I see things in columns and rows, and I can pull language out and ascertain very quickly, well, if you're promising that, what's the activity? No, that doesn't match. So I've got this ability to see things quite clearly and really quickly. And quite often I work with organisations or professionals who've got this chaotic amount of knowledge, and they don't know what to do with it. They don't know how to put it together. So it'll be well scaffolded in the right order, and it'll be systemised and consistent. So it's sort of a bit of a superpower that I've got, and possibly on the
You certainly have.
So that with that superpower, I sort of realised then that this was a forte, it was a skill that I could market. And from there, I worked for a vocational training council for a little while. So they were the sort of liaison between the people offering the degrees, the people studying the degrees, and then the people employing those people. So quite often these people would come into the workplace and be like, we did not learn what we need on the job. So we were the liaison to bring all those parties together and go, well, there's no point teaching people in university what they don't need when they're on the job. So that was an interesting process to be involved in. And then because I'd had the English teaching experience and the curriculum development experience and the vocational experience, and I'd worked in TAFEs and colleges a lot, teaching English as well, teacher training, then there was a position out in the Pacific that required that combination of skills, which, as you can imagine, is not very common. So, I ended up out in the Pacific on a teacher training program in primary and secondary schools, so working with a teacher college. And then from there, I moved into a tertiary program, which was creating an English teaching system or program for staff, students, admin, and everyone else. And then training the teachers in more communicative methods. So it was bringing that love of teacher training and curriculum development together on two different projects. I was out there for 2.5 years. I ended up with multiple organ failure. I decided life had to be different. I didn't want to be climbing the corporate ladder anymore. And here I am running my own show.
Mate, there's a little teaser.
Well, that was a quick wrap up.
The multiple organ failure story. We'll go into that later.
Oh, we didn't even go into the black whale story. I mean, there's so much to this. There's so much.
We will.
When you get a chance to know Maria, you'll find out that there are literally hundreds of these stories. I'm really happy that you're writing them now, Maria, because I know you had some letters that you wrote to your family and you unearthed those, didn't you? And found out that you had all these beautiful writings that you could start repurposing and sharing with people.
My auntie turned up on my doorstep with a manila pack of my emails to her, and she just put them in my hand and she goes, write the book. And I was like, okay,
sign me up. Where do we get a copy?
Well, it's interesting actually. I'm writing it because it's, for me, I love writing, but actually doing it recreationally, it's like, where do you find time with all the rest of the stuff? So I challenged myself to write once a month, and I created a little Patreon account. So basically it's like, nothing. It's like cost of a coffee per month. And I've got a little group of people supporting me, and the money that I earn from that, I deliver teacher training volunteer trips in Sumba, which is a little island near Bali, to teachers who have no training and probably will never get any. So it's sort of forcing me to write the book, but it's also giving this really just this nice little neat sort of community of people who are supporting me to do it. They get a buzz once a year because we get to see these workshops put on and resources going out, and it's
that's fantastic.
That's great. Give us that link. We'll put it in the show notes, Maria. So people
thank
can.
you.
And Maria, you were doing that just before the happenings of our times.
Yes, I was on my way back to Oslo, which is where I'm based half of the year. And I went to deliver the Zumba teacher training, and all of a sudden it was when you get back to Australia, you have to be quarantined for 14 days. So I came back early. I cut my trip short. I delivered the training and then just got straight on a plane and came back. But unfortunately arrived 12 hours after that quarantine place was in place. And therefore my flight to Oslo was cancelled. And here I am for the foreseeable future. But,
yes.
you know,
and you
I'm in sunny Perth. How terrible to be like isolated in a place like Perth with a beautiful community of people around me. Yeah, no, not
so true. It could be worse.
Yeah, we certainly have lucked out in the whole scenario. There's no two ways about it. Go, Lee, you've got a question.
I was lucky enough to visit Maria in Ubud in Bali, because Maria, you had your lovely home there, and you worked from there as well. So I wanted to ask you about the joys of location independence, because Ed and I, 12 years ago or so, with our daughter Sasha, when she turned 10, we went traveling for 6 months, and we just loved the fact that you could pick up what were then quite heavy laptops, I must admit, and it was before Airbnb, but we just traveled around, and Ed worked and I did a little bit of work, more planning of our next accommodation and stuff like that, but we had a ball, and that really got us a taste of what that's like. And it's been awesome to get to know you and just see how you travel and weave your consulting work and your work with people. It doesn't matter where you are, and you very much embrace that life. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, when the good old multiple organ failure hit, I came back from the Pacific and was like, I can't keep doing this travel thing. And the reason I didn't want to keep doing the travel thing was because I'd spent essentially the last 13, 14 years of my life packing everything up and creating a new home somewhere, and then packing everything up and creating a new home somewhere else. So sort of moving from job to job. And of course I'd done stints in Australia as well, but I'd come back to Australia, I'd be in the suburbs. I wasn't married, or I didn't have kids, and I was living surrounded by people who were married and having kids, and the lifestyle was just very not me. Like I felt quite trapped, I guess, by that scenario. I mean, I love Perth, but when everyone else around you is having kids, it's like, so I guess that's what kept me taking these overseas postings, because it was dynamic and it was new, and I get to learn new languages and culture. And, I mean, it's very hard to go back to a 9-to-5 in the suburbs in your own country when that's been your norm.
Sure.
So when I came back from the Pacific, I was sort of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because I knew that I was sort of sick of this setting up and, building up all these stuff like connections and whatever, and then having to pack everything down and come home again. Like that had become very tiring. But I also didn't want to live in 9-to-5 in suburbs. That was just like taking a piece of me, and like just asking that traveling adventurer sort of spirit in me to die, which that's who I've been since I was a kid. I mean, I did my first exchange program in Italy at the age of 16, came back to year 12 and went, there's got to be more to life than 9-to-5 in the suburbs, so I felt like that since I was 17. Nothing's changed.
Yeah. So you did your eat, pray, love very early then, and then ended up in Ubud a little bit later. So coming back from the Pacific, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Like, how can I keep the adventure but not have to pack up all the time? And so I went up to Ubud to sort of just escape for a couple of months and give myself some distance. And I met some people who were living up there, and because it's only a 3-hour flight to Perth, it could actually quite flexible. So I thought, maybe I'll just spend a couple of months, and then maybe I'll spend another couple of months. And then I went up to spend 3 months, and my mentor was like, well, I'm going back to Canada. Would you like my house, my staff, and all of my connections? I'm like, so how about my business? Would you like to buy my business so you can live here permanently? I was like, oh, okay. So that's what I did. I took on basically the life that she left. And I maintained this life where I was living between Bali and Perth. So because it was such a short flight, same time zone, very easy to have clients in Australia, but service them from Bali just over the internet. For sure.
So I set that life up, and then I had clients come up and do little retreats with me. So Lois, you were one of the first. Yes. Come up and just do the work or get the coaching, but also just relax and take all that Bali has to offer. So Bali and living like that happened for a little while. I mean, the location independence with my business, yes, I've got clients here that prefer to see me face to face, but at the end of the day, we can do all the work we need to online, and now we're being forced to because of this global health situation. More and more people are realizing how effective and efficient it can actually be. So
absolutely,
yeah,
I'm hoping it stays that way. I really do hope it's. I really do.
I agree because it gives you so much flexibility. You can live anywhere. You don't have to pack up and set up a new life somewhere. You can just go, right, well, and that's what I did last year. I went and spent about 4 or 5 months based in the UK and just doing as much traveling as I could in Europe, and spending quite a bit of time in Oslo as well. So that's where my partner is. So yeah, it was an interesting trip. So I went to Canada, I went to the States, I went to Spain for a couple of weeks over Christmas. And I just took my laptop and carried on. It didn't matter where I was, as long as I had a stable internet connection and a somewhat decent background.
Lois and I registered a domain name. Well, I registered it technically. We own laptopnomads.com.
Oh, nice.
That was when we registered sort of 12 years ago or so when we were doing this trip. And this was before Facebook was really a thing. And we were posting and blogging on that website so family and friends could go to it and see it. We've still got the domain, but nothing on there anymore. But what you're describing is basically that you have laptop will travel and work. And
it's interesting because you can sort of go, I'm not available for that week, and people go, oh, okay, well, we need to book in before, or we need to book in after, and they accept it, and they don't care that I'm not available for certain weeks at a time right throughout the year. It just sort of forces them to make some decisions, like, okay, well, are you going to get this work done before or after? I mean, that's the nature of my work as well. So I work with people who need to go away and do some stuff before they come back for another session to sort of push them on to the next stage. So yeah, having the flexibility to go, oh, I'm actually not available for those 5 days, or I'm going to be jet lagged, so you want to work with me? I'll be jet lagged. I would suggest that's not a good idea. And they're like, oh, okay, well, next week, So yeah, it's a super flexible lifestyle. I love it. I love the fact that it can be when there's not a pandemic. When you've got that flexibility and the choice to live and work wherever you like and still deliver a super productive service, which is what I do. So
you certainly do, Maria.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
When you were talking earlier, a Rubik's Cube popped into my head, and I was thinking, you basically, in my analogy, is you take a mixed up Rubik's Cube and put it all into the matching colors.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the problem. Someone thinks, oh, I'll go and write a course. And then they start to do it and they go, oh my God, where do I get, how does that, I'm one of those people, just to be clear, is getting the syntax of everything flowing is a huge challenge that most people have no clue about until they start down the process. And that's when they need someone like you.
Yeah. And I can vouch for that, Maria, with your systematization. I think one of the revelations was something very simple you said to me was just get all the stuff that's to do with your course and put it in a file, as in, I had an online file. And that alone revolutionized my next steps. Like I actually went, I actually have quite a lot here. And you did warn me that I would find that. But that was fantastic. So, I had bits here, bits there. And, being a creative person, it was just like another thing there, another thing there. So it was really awesome to do that. But then what you helped me do was literally get it all out and get it in order and say, well, do they need to learn this bit before that bit? And all the stuff that you try to work out yourself, but having a sounding board, you're just, great at that, great at really getting that detail down. And I remember the spreadsheet, and it was colourful and cute so that people that are spreadsheet haters could still work with us.
Look, and sometimes it is just about the simple solutions. And funny you say Rubik's Cube. I've got a funny story about when I was a kid. I was given a Rubik's Cube. Now this is the systems brain, right? This is the systems brain. Even at the age of 7, someone gave me this Rubik's Cube, and I was like trying to do it, and I was like, this is really inefficient. So I just took off all the stickers and put them back on the right side. So I went out and went, look, here we go, it's done. And my mother was like, you're a genius. And I was like, yeah, totally. Sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. That's the thing. Like you're so close to your content that you can, but what about this? What about that? And you've got so much. It's so overwhelming. Someone with a systems brain comes in completely neutral and goes, right, well, I see a chunk over there. I see a chunk over there. Is that right? They're like, oh, you're a genius. How do you do that? And I was like, I'm just not close to it. That's the difference, that you're so so into it, and you can see all the connections, and that is the problem. So yeah, sometimes a simple thing is, like I said to someone the other day, I was helping them clear out a G drive because it was scary, lots and lots of duplicates and lots of old files and same files, and what's this file and how do we make it so we can't find it, and why are there photos in that file? And so they said, how do you do it? And I was like, well, how do you clean out a pantry? And they were like, well, you take everything out and then you only put the good stuff back in. I'm like, that's what we're gonna do. And they're like, no, we can't take all of it out. I'm like, oh yes, yeah.
The pantry method, we'll call that from now on.
I love that. You'll be the Maria Kondo. Digital.
The digital equivalent.
Yeah, only put it back if it's the good stuff. No, but honestly, that is what people do. Like they get so consumed, they put everything in a folder. They freak out, and it's like, okay, well, let's just take out the bits that you know are good, and then go searching for the other bits.
That's funny because that's Sasha's job today.
Oh, is it cleaning out?
Cleaning out, sorting out our pantry. She's been putting it off for a week or two. But
it's not
Maria said you need to clean out the pantry, Sasha.
Take everything out.
Put
everything on the table.
Only put the good stuff back in.
Yeah. Put all the like stuff together. Get rid of the stuff that's been there with expiry dates from 7 years ago.
But I do love that analogy of the analog to the digital. And I was curious, Maria, with people that, have been quite good trainers, or, they've coached one-on-one, or they've done that sort of work before. And then suddenly, even though they've maybe been meaning to put stuff online or even interact like this online, they're suddenly thrust into doing it. So how do you help people? And look, I'm one of them. So you've helped me a little while ago now, and I've done an online course, and I've been delivering workshops this week actually through Zoom around the country, which has been awesome fun. What are your kind of top tips, I guess? And I know there's many, but for helping people make that leap or that jump?
Look, I think, and I've been asked to talk a lot on this lately, and I keep coming back to the same bits of advice, and that is people, what I find anyway, is people think, oh my God, I've got to go online. And they go from, I've been doing this thing face to face that works really well with a group of however many people, and now I have to put that online. So they either go, right, I'm going to try and do exactly what I do face to face online, and then I get frustrated that it doesn't work.
Yep.
Or they go, oh, that means I've got to make videos, and I've got to create like a PowerPoint presentation and record myself speaking. And, they go the other end, and they try and have this, massively a highly produced version of what they do. And neither approach really works, because what you do face to face and what you do online are two completely different things. And people will make a mistake between live online and self-study online. So live online is very close to what you do face to face, but obviously there's very different classroom management techniques if you've got groups of people. Like you can read body language in a room. It's very hard to do that when everyone's like this on a computer like that, or the dog runs in, or someone hasn't got their video on because they don't like being seen on video. So the managing a live event online it's a skill set, and you've got to have some skills before you'd launch into that with any success. I mean, I ran a webinar the other day thinking maybe 20 people would turn up, 150 signed up, and 45 turned up live, and I was like, whoa, like that's not what I was expecting. And so I had to sort of think about it on the fly. I mean, I do this for a living, and I was not prepared for that. So deep breaths, but there's just different ways of managing people, and especially when you've got larger groups of people online. So things like, you've got to set housekeeping rules at the start, like you would in a massive room. You don't expect people just to know how to interact with you unless you tell them. So things like,
very true.
If you've got a question, put it in the chat. Please put yourself on mute. Please keep yourself on mute. Please don't interrupt unless, you've got a hand up and a question's asked, because I'm trying to manage 50 of you at a time. Much like you deal with hecklers, if there's someone who just keeps interrupting or keeps turning their mic on, then you've got to deal with them and get them out of the classroom space, So there's a different skill set, and that revolves a lot around the technology you're using and whether you're comfortable or accustomed to that kind of technology. But having to create fully self-study versions of what you do, so that means, recording your presentation and then creating activities where people can study it by themselves and not with you. That is a completely different kettle of fish.
It is.
What works online, you cannot just go, I'm just going to record myself doing that presentation. No. You don't have the feedback from the audience. You don't have the interaction. You don't have any of the little subtle ways that you play with the audience when you deliver live. You ask for acknowledgement, and you say raise of hands if you're doing it. That doesn't work when it's a static recorded tutorial. So you've got to have different strategies for motivation. You've got to have a different structure, like the way that you build up the learning experience. You've got to have way more detailed visual aids, like workbooks, like things for people to capture notes and ask questions, and you set it up in a test each test, so people are like looking for the answers and trying to work out whether they're right. So anyway, I could talk about that for hours. But yeah, it's a completely different kettle of fish. So there's a reason why people get overwhelmed, and there's a reason why people get super disappointed, because they look at themselves presenting on video and go, wow, that's just awful, that looks horrible.
I do remember, Maria, you said do your first video, which was like that type of course, a standalone course, and you said, but just wear something that doesn't go with the, with the camera. When you see newsreaders and they're wearing something stripy and it's all moving. I didn't quite have that, but I had something that I didn't really want recorded, nicely in, and then I showed it to Maria, and she was very like, yep, okay, now do it again, like with these tweaks, and then when I did it again and sent it to her, she's like, much better.
Much better.
Yeah. Look, and that's a problem when people get on video. Like they all of a sudden go, hi, today we are going to talk about, I'm like, would you speak like that in real life? They're like, no. I'm like, why are you doing it? Because it's a recording. So
did you guys see the Queen's Easter presentation the other day? It was apparently the first time the Queen of England had done a address to the nation at Easter, which is all very good because of what's going on. I'm not a royals follower or anything, but whoever guided her, and maybe no one guided her, it was her own choice, she chose to wear a green top, just like a green screen backdrop. So the amount of memes that have been done with her, with this being stuff projected on her, it's just
it's hilarious.
So I'm sorry, Queen royal lovers, but
no,
don't wear a green screen top on a video because you're asking for trouble. Anyway, it was just
agreed.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, that's the thing. You can talk for hours about the do's and don'ts, but I guess the number one bit of advice is don't panic if you've got to go online. There's sometimes some really simple solutions to creating an online variation of what you do face to face. And if you do think that creating a standalone self-study version of what you do so people can watch videos and engage with stuff, whatever, that is a process. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. And recording what you normally do may not have the best outcomes. So have a look on. I mean, I've got oodles of free stuff on my website to help people in that situation. You don't have to spend a ton of money trying to get some simple strategies to move forward. But don't seek help if you're not an educator or a trainer, but you know that you're really good at delivering stuff face to face. You've got hard skills already. You just need to learn some specialized skills in how to convert into an online setting.
Yep, that's exactly right, Maria. And
it's all learnable.
You are the guru to do that and help people with that, because I've certainly experienced that myself, and know many others have as well. And you've worked across a lot of different industries, haven't you? So, self-employed practitioners like myself, but you've worked with big organisations, governments, all sorts of different entities, and the principles are the same, aren't they? Really, it's just that you're able to, get it in order.
Yeah, look, there's very little difference whether you're working with the Ministry of Education or the Public Transport Authority or, Lois. I work with a skydiver. I work with a lot of different type of health professionals. I work with business coaches for tradespeople. The length and breadth of the type of people that I work with in terms of the size of their organisation, their subject matter expertise, it's all the same. At the end of the day, quality, best practice, foundations of, I can't even say what I do. The foundations of best practice teaching and learning are the same. And they obviously will translate differently depending on what your end learning product looks like whether it's a book or an online course or a webinar or whatever. But the qualities are the same and they apply to everyone.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that's what's so great is that you can, I know we're going to have a long journey because I've got more books to do and more courses to create and all those sorts of things. And you're so fun to work with, Maria. So thank you for what you've done so far. And I hope some of the people watching or listening to this might say, oh gosh, I'm not a teacher or trainer, but I think Maria can help me. And you absolutely can. So I guess that's the other message. You don't have to be a teacher, trainer, educator to work with Maria. But if you are, you kind of go into the stratosphere really, and you unlearn a few things and learn a few new things. I think was certainly my experience. And now you'd be glad to know my files are much better, Maria, as well. That was just an added benefit that I didn't plan on getting. So.
Well, that's the thing, right? You learn the skills, and I talk myself out of jobs down the track because people come and they go, oh, I've got all these skills now. You don't have to come back to me again. You've learnt, you've got the process, you've got the templates, you've got the frameworks. And it's such a joy to see people like you come back. When you do come back, it's like, I've done this thing. Can you check it over? And I'm looking, I'm going, gee, have you worked with me before? Like, it's all there. Off you go, you know.
That's great though, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a skill set. It's a learnable skill set. It's not something that you have to keep going back and paying someone else to do for you. It's something you can fairly easily, Lois, you attest to that, you can fairly easily pick up the skills yourself. You stick at it, give it your best. You're an expert in your field. You know what you're talking about. It's just learning some basic skills around teaching and learning. That's it, really.
It is. And I think the accountability, though, is a huge part of it as well, and the fun. So it's great to work with you, Maria. Yeah. So what's up next for you, you know, and what can people sort of seek you out for in the coming months?
Well, I've got a couple of different, obviously at this time, it's sort of everyone wants to get things online. So we've got a couple of webinars coming up. We've got two coming up at the end of April, actually. So one is about delivery platforms. So how do I get my content online? Like, what mechanism do I use? Like a hosted learning platform? Do I use a learning management system? Do I need one? How do I make the decision for my business? So I'm doing that one. I'm also doing one with a sales coach in the UK. So that's called how to rapidly upgrade your onboarding process. So we talk there about what the onboarding process for a sales team needs to look like the components and the stages that needs to go through. And then I take you through the benefits of digitalizing that process. So a lot of what I'm helping people do at the moment is creating digital versions of things they do normally face-to-face or one-on-one. And a lot of that is induction or onboarding or, you know, like just, you know, the things that you feel yourself saying again and again and again. And there's always, say, HR jobs, for example, going in and, you know, walking someone through the company culture or whatever. So yeah, a lot of what I'm doing at the moment is helping companies digitalize what is otherwise either face-to-face or continually repeated at the expense of HR staff, or, you know, maybe not HR staff, but other staff. So yeah, we've got those two webinars coming up, and yeah, there's a range in the pipeline that are coming up. But yeah, I've also got a ridiculous amount of free stuff on the on my website. One of the things was an hour-and-a-half webinar that I just did, which is called how do you convert your content from face-to-face into online. So now it's an 8-part lesson in my library. It's complete with the, whatever it is, 30-page workbook or something ridiculous.
And that's at mariadoyle.com, is that correct?
Yeah, mariadoyle.com. It's lesson 5 in the welcome gifts. Yeah, cool. So if you sign up for the welcome gifts, it's all free. And I'm doing live Q&As for the rest of the month as well, just to demonstrate what a flipped learning environment is. So flipped learning is all about go and do the study first and then ask me questions later instead of come and ask me questions while I'm lecturing. So I've demonstrated that. The lesson's there. That's lesson 5, and you can ask questions for the rest of the month. So
fantastic. Look, it's a huge. I've been looking at some graphs and charts recently about the growth areas because of what's going on. But I think even before that, producing online courses, online learning was a massive growth area anyway. Yeah. But what's been happening over the last month or two is just mind blowing. Doesn't mean all of it that's going up is good, as you would know and experience. A lot of it is going, I don't think I want to watch that. But, you know, so I think there's probably a lot more people who need help from someone like Maria than they actually think until they start going down the process of trying to put it together. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good that people have a crack at it. Yeah. But I think they can save themselves a lot of time and pain by seeing Maria. We're not sponsored by Maria. We do not get affiliate commissions from Maria. Disclaimer. We are what we would call raving fans.
Oh, bless. Thank you both. I love working with both of you. You're awesome human beings, and I think the world needs more people like us, quite frankly.
Absolutely.
Can I just say that out loud? Oh, sorry. That's
absolutely.
Just escaped out of my mouth. Sorry.
I totally agree. It's not narcissism that's coming out of my head. It's just truth.
It is, right? Truth. Like good people doing good things. That's what the world needs more people of.
Yes. Definitely. Maria does beautiful courses. She does the best courses. They're the most beautiful courses I've ever seen. And
Well,
I'm a
start
course
calling Lois
expert.
Melania,
I know
or-
more about courses than anyone else on the planet. But
Oh,
Maria,
please.
she's very special. She's a
Yes,
special,
Donald.
special person.
She's all kinds of special. Oh my God, don't even.
We don't
All
want
right,
to
we're
end
there.
on that. We don't want to end on that.
No, we want to end on the double organs failure because you can't.
Yeah, true. You can't leave people hanging. So
that's just like, what about the double organ failure? So we let people
multiple organ
now,
failure.
only if you feel comfortable in talking about it.
Sure.
You brought it up, so obviously you do.
Yes. Look. So basically, I was living out in the Pacific. It's a most you can tell people who've just arrived because they get off the plane looking. And when I say just arrived, like they've arrived within the last couple of months. Yeah. Because they turn up at, like the only watering hole looking really coiffed with like, lovely hair and like lovely clothing and like, no bags under their eyes or anything like that. You can go, these have just come off the plane. Most people by about the 9-10 month mark look like they've been through hell and back, and they've got the dark circles and all their clothes are in tatters and they haven't
like
had
Castaway.
And pretty much they look like somewhere on the
Tom Hanks from Castaway.
Yeah, look, Kiribati, in all honesty, the people in Kiribati are some of the most beautiful people I've ever worked with in the world. Like they've got very little and they give so much. They're gorgeous, gorgeous people. Their culture is very interesting, very, very different to ours. And so this is most definitely not giving Kiribati a bad rap. But the reality is that it's a country of atolls in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So to get anything to that atoll, it's got to be flown in or it's got to come on a boat from New Zealand or Australia. So fresh food is not so easy to find. Well, it wasn't when I was there. So that was a good nearly 10 years ago now. Right. So when I was there, you had to wait for a ship to come in. That happened once every 6 months, 6 weeks-ish, depending if the ship came. And when the fruit and vegetables came, they'd been sitting in storage for God knows how long. Quite often it was vegetables that couldn't be sold or was getting close to not being able to be sold. So they'd put them into deep freeze on a ship. So by the time it got there, I mean, you were paying I think it was like $15 at that time for a white cabbage.
Oh,
and
really?
You'd have to sort of like take off the maybe 3 or 4 of the layers to get down to the bit that wasn't rotting yet.
Wow.
So it was pretty full on. Like fresh just didn't really exist.
No.
Fresh fish in abundance because it all came out of the ocean. But yeah, rice, fresh fish, and the only sort of style of restaurant were Chinese restaurants, and it was like bastardized Chinese, like it was, like Australian Chinese, like bright pink fluorescent.
Oh
no, MSG in there.
It was just like basically it was just like MSG on a plate. So nothing really fresh. The only sort of vegetables you got really were like onion and carrot. Stuff that could survive on a boat for that long. So most Westerners after a year sort of started looking pretty haggard.
Bit of scurvy.
I lasted 2.5 years. So you can imagine.
Wow.
And the reality was that not a lot of fresh food, not a lot of healthcare. It was, if you didn't bring it in your suitcase, you sort of didn't have it. So you'd get frozen chicken in a supermarket, but the way you worked out whether that was probably a good idea to buy it or not was how many flat sides the box would have. So that would indicate how many times it had defrosted.
Oh, nasty.
Nasty. So again, this is nothing disparaging about Kiribati as a country or a nation or a culture, because they are gorgeous. But the reality of living there and health, I mean, the average age was 52.
Wow.
Oh, what? Right? Till they lived, you mean?
Yeah, life expectancy.
Life expectancy. Okay.
Yes, it's pretty full on your health. So
yeah,
I was feeling a bit faint one day, and I was like, they were like, you look really pale, you need to go home. I'm like, okay. So I went to walk out the door and didn't get out the door and was in seizures for a couple of days. Heart going all over the place. My lungs sort of collapsed, sort of, not really. Like they were at about 30% capacity, so I couldn't really breathe. And if I sat up any more than about a 45-degree angle, you'd get about 30 seconds before I'd pass out. So I couldn't. My blood wasn't pumping, my heart wasn't pumping properly, my lungs were at very low capacity, and I was having seizures. So yeah, not so much fun. At the end of the day, I had to get medically evacuated out to Melbourne, and they put me through all the infectious diseases tests there were in the world, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with you, it's in your head. Like, oh, thanks for that. Yeah, don't know that I'd bring seizures on.
Jeez, really?
So
bless them.
Yeah, the cause was never really gotten to the end of, but I did find out, like, through just felt like a dog with a bone, like there is something wrong. This is not a psychological issue. Like, I'm an adventurer, I'm a traveler. This is what I do. Like, I don't want to be ill. I found out through working with a naturopath who actually came up and was one of my clients in Bali that I have a very rare, well, it's actually not very rare. It's quite common genetic disorder.
Okay.
So yeah, that creates a certain chemical in your blood, and when you can't get rid of that chemical, then you end up with things like multiple organ failure in its most chronic form. So essentially,
does it have a name?
Yeah, it does. It's called Pyrrole's disorder. So what it creates, long story short, what it creates is your body can't get rid of copper, and you end up copper toxic.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So when it's under control, it's actually not that hard to get under control. It's just taking a bunch of supplements under the guidance of someone who knows how to help you detoxify from copper overload, because it's quite dangerous. Well, obviously, it like messes with your heart and messes with your brain and messes with all sorts of things. So
there's a course in that. I reckon someone should do a course and speak to Maria, because she could help them with not only the course but the information for the course.
Lived experience. Yeah, pretty full on. But here I am, and I'm way healthier and happier than I have been in a long time. Because that's what helped me realize I had a problem. So anyway, so that's the story. I survived.
That was great. That was good. People would be happy they weren't left hanging with that one.
Exactly.
So,
and actually, I think it's given us another segue to a future guest on for, keeping healthy during this time as well, particularly when we're becoming shut-ins. But I don't think we'll be just eating, rice and...
No, we're lucky. You've got fresh fruit and vegetables.
We've got it good.
Sunshine.
And that toilet paper tastes really awesome too. You munch down on the...
Stop it. Oh my God.
All right. Funny. Well, thank you, Maria, for your time. It's been awesome having you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Stories abound.
Absolutely. We've only just scratched the scratch of the scratch with Maria. I can tell you that. So follow her stuff. Go to her website. We'll put all the links in the show notes. mariadoyle.com if you want to just go there without going to the show notes. And awesome. We'll catch you all on the flip side. Thanks, Lo. See you in a couple of minutes when you come downstairs. And
thanks, Lo. See you soon online, Maria.
Yeah, gorgeous to work with you as usual.
Bye-bye. See you all.
Ciao.